Ugh. And we're live? What up, what up, what up? We are officially live. Welcome to Hawks Hoops, guys. Wednesday, 8 o'clock. Y'all know the drill. Hawks Hoops Live. Wednesdays, 8 o'clock. Thank you so much for pulling up. If you are not already subscribed to the channel, we're trying to subscribe. My boy calling me already? Oh, no. He know this show was... It's this... Hold on. You... Oh, it do say 9. I don't know why I say 9, but no, we here, we here. All right, bro. Now, I mean, that's my boy Mario. That's a real supporter right there. For some reason, YouTube said the stream was starting at 9 o'clock. The stream definitely starts at 8. So if you hear at 8, that means you're here on time because you know what we doing around here. Some quick, I guess I'll say housekeeping things out the way. If you're pulling up, it's your first time seeing the show, welcome to Hawks Hoops Live. This is a weekly live NBA show. Happens every Wednesday at 8 p.m. right here on my YouTube channel. The cool thing about Hawks Hoops Live is, of course, you can chat. You can type, you can hop in the chat, you can type your comments, get your takes in, and we can have a dialogue there. But you can also call in throughout the show and talk to me directly and share your takes, share your opinions. And that's all. That's what the show is really about. Basketball fans talking about the game. Also, I'm curious, we switched up the lens situation. I felt like last episode it was just really tight on my face, and I wanted to just expand it out a little bit. So that's what we did. And we're going to go ahead and hop right into it. Leave a like on the video. It helps out the channel to be more discoverable for new fans and new people. And like I said, if you're not already subscribed, go ahead and drop the subscribe button. We're trying to hit 2K before my birthday, which is February 1st. That's the new goal, 2K before the birthday. All right, starting out the show, we gotta show some love. Say congratulations to the greatest shooter of all time, who is Steph Curry. Last night in the Garden, he passed Ray Allen for the most three-pointers made all time and career. And it's crazy because I can distinctly remember when Ray Allen passed Reggie Miller. Like that happened in, I want to say 2011. It was a game in February. I remember reading earlier today, but it was in 2011 when he passed Reggie Miller. And I remember thinking at the time, I'm like, yo, this is crazy. I don't really know if anybody else going to pass this because there wasn't really nobody close to Ray. At the time he's passing that, wasn't nobody doing what Ray Allen was doing besides Ray Allen for the longevity that he was doing it. And then here come along Steph Curry, absolutely changed the game, changed the way people look at the three-point shot, changed the way people look at analytics in general. Now it's just, people say the mid-range game is dead. In my opinion, it's really not. We can have a conversation about that at a later day. But for a while there, people were saying the mid-range game is dead, and he really did evolve the game. And now you got to pick players like him, Dame when he's playing right, James Harden when he's playing right. You got to pick up players like that at half court now because they just really extended their range that far. And it's just really crazy. And, shout out to Steph for being legitimately the greatest shooter of all time. What's even crazier about him breaking that record is the fact that he's still playing. And honestly, if you ask me, he's got like at least 3 more years of playing at this level. And then even if he does regress and starts to take on a more of a shooter role, we've seen old shooters hang around the league a long time. And Steph could high-key continue to just run around at the age of 40 if he wanted to and shoot 39, 38, 40% from 3 on a team and being like a third, fourth option and just keep shooting threes. So I watched, I seen on Twitter, I seen it circulating a lot today on Twitter, on YouTube. I'm always watching and then taking basketball content, NBA content. And a lot of people have basically broke it down to say that Steph could low key, by the time his career is all said and done, get like 3,500, 4,000 threes in his career. Do you think someone else will break their record? If so, who? William Paris, thank you for pulling up. Let me get that in a second. I think someone else could break Ray Allen's record. Like I think James Harden is going to pass Reggie Miller's record this season, and then probably next season or the season after that, he's going to pass where Ray Allen's number is. But unless something catastrophic happens, and knock on wood, I don't wish that on any NBA player. Unless something catastrophic happens to Steph Curry, I don't think anybody's touching his record. At least probably not in the next 10, 15, 20 years. Like it's only been 10 years since Ray Allen broke Reggie's record, and then now we got Steph. But Steph is such like an anomaly, such a literal generational talent that I don't think anyone is going to pass his number, because Steph, legit, like I was saying earlier, Steph has the opportunity to literally push this number to 3,500, 4,000 made threes. And I don't see anybody doing that. It's going to take, like I said, 10, 15, 20 years from now, where the new generation are watching Steph so much, and you got somebody who's really dialed in, and you got some 5-year-old somewhere right now shooting 1,000 threes a day. Like, that's the type of player it's going to take to beat Steph, because he's just got what I call God-given talent. I mean, yes, don't get that twisted. He's worked on his three more than probably anybody else in history, but I don't see anybody passing his record. Jason McCourtney, I don't think Clay would, just because he plays with Steph, and Steph's always going to be the number one option on that team. So as long as them two are together, Steph's going to be the number one option. So when you think about that 3-point record, it was one of those records that, like, growing up, I don't know if I thought could be broken. You know, I don't think I thought that record had the opportunity to be broken. I looked at that record like people looked at Kareem's scoring record, and I mean, believe it or not, there's NBA minds out there who have done the math and breaking it down that there's potential for LeBron James, if he stays healthy over the next like 3-4-ish seasons, that could come close to breaking Kareem's all-time scoring record if he sustains like 25 points a game. A lot of NBA nerd number stuff, but I just think it's really dope. I wanted to give him his flowers at the top of the show. And now let's get into a couple of things. We're going to open up the phone lines. Actually, let me do that real quick. Pull up. I'll fault y'all. I like to try to have these already ready, but as you can see today, it's not. You know what I mean? But it's all right. Y'all rocking with the kid, and that's all that matters. You feel me? So we're gonna go ahead and open up the phone lines. They'll remain open throughout the show. So if you ever want to call in, have a conversation about whatever it is, we can keep going. First person that comes to mind when it comes to breaking 3-point record is Trae Young. Trae Young is, I think he's in that mold of a player to potentially break the 3-point record, and I think he's starting young enough that he's starting early enough in his career with already the mindset of I'm gonna be a shooter. Luka is another person that's already starting that mindset of I'm gonna be a shooter. But it's something about the fact that Steph really can still play at this level for another 5 years. I don't know if somebody's catching Steph. I think a lot of players, honestly, will pass Ray Allen's number. I think Luka could pass Ray Allen's number, Mario. I think Trae could pass Ray Allen's number, Mario. I already said James Harden will pass Ray Allen's number. But passing whatever number Steph ends up at, I don't know if anybody's going to do that anytime soon. Ray Allen's number, people will pass, unfortunately. I mean, not really unfortunately, but Ray, it is what it is. People are going to pass your number. Steph's potential 3,500, 4,000 threes, I don't know if I can see guys doing that. That's all I'm saying. I wanted to talk about real quick. So last week, what day was this game? Last Wednesday, I want to say the Timberwolves played the Utah Jazz, right? They ended up actually losing this game. They lost 136-104. But after that game, you had a lot of conversation about, not a lot of conversation. You had two interesting comments from one player I respect, kind of sort of, Anthony Edwards, player I like, nice young player. And the second one is a player I don't really love that much, in Patrick Beverley. Patrick Beverley said, let me pull it up right here so y'all can see what I'm talking about. I see y'all still talking about Steph. We're going to come back to that in a second. Is Steph the MVP this season? I agree, but Trae Young hasn't had the injuries that he had early in his career. Yeah, I mean, that is true. Steph, struggled with ankle injury early in his career. That is well documented. It's actually funny. Steph's injuries is what led him to... Steph's injuries indirectly are what led to the Warriors being able to afford Kevin Durant, because Steph signed a smaller contract because he couldn't... What's I'm looking for? He couldn't demand a bigger contract because he was injured when he signed his previous contract before his current max extension, obviously. And no, Steph could be the MVP. It's either Steph or Kevin Durant. We're going to talk about MVP later in the show because I got a dark horse that no one's talking about. I mean, people are talking about, but they're not at the same time. So like I was saying, I wanted to talk about Patrick Beverley's comments on Rudy Gobert. Basically not guarding what is his name? Karl-Anthony Towns, which I thought was a little dumb, but it's a couple of reasons I thought this was dumb. So that after the game, Patrick Beverley says, if I'm defensive player of the year, I'm always guarding the best player no matter what. I'm not roaming. No discredit to Royce O'Neal or any other on their team, but if I'm defensive player of the year, I'm not guarding Royce O'Neal. I'm guarding Mike Conley. I'm guarding Donovan Mitchell. I'm guarding Bogdanovich. This is Patrick Beverley talking about himself, saying if he was defensive player of the year. You got Rudy Gobert, who, is two-time defensive player of the year, probably could win it again this year. He's almost always in conversation for defensive player of the year, one of the best defenders in the league. You got Rudy Gobert out there guarding Vanderbilt, and every time I hear he's defensive player of the year, so whatever. And then you even had Anthony Edwards say something very similar of like, basically saying he doesn't understand why they couldn't finish in the paint over Rudy, that Rudy doesn't put any fear in his heart, and that he actually struggles more against Kristaps Porzingis, which I thought was actually weird and interesting to say. And I'm not so much interested in part of it. Yes, I'm interested in these statements. I think they're honestly don't make any sense, especially coming from Patrick Beverley. Patrick Beverley is someone who I think the media loves as a great defender, but if you ask a lot of other NBA players, especially, I remember that quote that went viral from Russell Westbrook saying that Patrick Beverley have y'all fooled. All he does is run around and eventually make a lot of noise. But it's more so just the mindset here, because at halftime of this game, the Timberwolves are only down 1 point to the Jazz. At the end of this game, in the second half, they get outscored by 30, and they lose 136 to 104. My thought process is, especially if you're Patrick Beverley, how can you talk all this much smack about Rudy Gobert, who is one of the best defenders in the league, who's rightfully two-time defensive player of the year, routinely on all defensive first team. How can you talk this much back about somebody who just beat you by 30? And I think that more so goes to talk about the state of this Timberwolves team, in the sense that I feel like they always have something to say, and I feel like they want to be good, but the mindset isn't there. Anthony Edwards also talked about how he wishes Karl-Anthony Towns was a lot more aggressive. I actually made a TikTok about this last week, saying that Karl-Anthony Towns does not shoot in the paint as much as I think he should. He shoots a lot of shots from three and long twos, which kind of makes sense because they do have Anthony Edwards. I think Karl-Anthony Towns and their coaching staff is trying to pull him out a little more to create driving lanes for Anthony Edwards and D'Lo. There's just not a lot of offense on that Timberwolves team. And I don't really see a future for this Timberwolves team, like a legitimate future. I'm not saying they couldn't make the playoffs. I'm not saying they might not even make the playoffs this year. I think the Timberwolves, if they turn it around and start playing a little better, could make a play-in team. But when you have a player like Karl-Anthony Towns, who's arguably like one of the best offensive players and offensive bigs in the league, when you really break it down, I'm thinking like Jokic, Joel Embiid. After those two, is Karl-Anthony Towns the third best offensive big in the league? If you ask me, I think he is. He's the best shooting big in the league. He has good post moves. He has good touch around the rim. And so when you have a talent like that and they're still struggling to make a play-in tournament, and before play-in tournaments were a thing, they were struggling to make the playoffs outside of the year that Jimmy Butler was there with them, I think it might be time to really consider moving this team around, moving Karl-Anthony Towns. I don't think the team would move Karl-Anthony Towns, and I don't necessarily mean that saying it's time to move Karl-Anthony Towns from a team perspective. But if I'm Karl-Anthony Towns, I'm legitimately considering like, hey, I might want to be out of here because there's nothing going on in this team. There's nothing here for me on this team. And he's kind of made that clear. He's said before that, like, things need to change. I'm tired of losing on this team. He came into this season already telling people, like, this team has struggled with stability basically since I've been drafted. I've gone through multiple coaches. I've gone through different GMs, and I haven't had any stability basically since I've been drafted. Very, very similar situation to what Devin Booker went through in his first couple of years, but then they got a lot of stability, and now they're title contenders. And I just don't see that happening for this Timberwolves organization. They don't seem to have any direction, in my opinion. And if I'm Karl-Anthony Towns, I'm asking for out, personally. Do I think he will? I don't know. He's got a fairly decent contract, so it might be harder to move. But he's that talented that if Karl-Anthony Towns said he wants out, teams are going to make moves to try to get Karl-Anthony Towns, is all I'm saying. Moving on. So shout out to Sideline Sources. If you don't follow Sideline Sources on Instagram, there's two people you need to be following on Instagram. Hawks Hoops, IG, you feel me? Follow me on Instagram. But then also follow Sideline Sources. If you're here watching me, that means you're definitely a fan of the NBA and you need to be following Sideline Sources. Sideline Sources grabbed these. The Athletic surveyed 118 former NBA players to learn their thoughts about the game today. And the Athletic did the great service of pulling up their answers. Chris Paul changes franchises literally. Oh yeah, Chris Paul changes franchises real. Let me see if I can make this any bigger. Oh no, it doesn't make the picture bigger, it just makes the words bigger. All right, so we're gonna go through this. I have some thoughts, especially have some thoughts about the type and era of players that they picked from. The first one I thought was interesting off the bat. Who is the best current player in the NBA? 44%, if you ask me, that's an overwhelming majority considering the next highest LeBron James 31. But 44% said Kevin Durant is the best player in the NBA right now. Can y'all see this? Does this look all right on y'all screens? I can't. It look, from what I can tell, it look all right. Y'all should be able to see this good. But let me know if you can't see it. If you ask me, yes, Kevin Durant is the best player of the league right now. I'm loving what Steph Curry is doing. I don't want people to get that wrong. I just spent the first 10 minutes of the episode praising the greatness that is Steph Curry. But I think when we're talking all around best player in the league right now, my pick is Kevin Durant. I might be a little biased. Kevin Durant is my favorite player, full disclosure. But I think his ability to score and the way that he scores for this Nets team, his ability to even play some good help side defense, I feel like we haven't seen a ton of that this season because he's had to do so much for this team offensively. But he is literally putting a very, very, very hurt. Oh, I skipped something. Well, I'll tie it into this. He's putting a very hurt Nets team on his back. And I want to talk about that very hurt Nets team real quick because, and I'm actually even going to remove this because I don't want to confuse y'all because I forgot I wanted to talk about the Nets real quick. And since we're talking about Kevin Durant being the best player in the league, let's talk about the Nets. So the other day, Kevin Durant dropped 51 or 52 against the Detroit Pistons. And everybody was like, yo, Kevin Durant going crazy. It's against the Pistons. And yes, I realized James Harden wasn't hurt. The Nets are being riddled with COVID protocol. I have a lot of players out. And then they go into an overtime game. I want to say the very next game against the Raptors, and he drops a 30-point triple-double. And I almost actually tweeted it and deleted it because I was like, I don't really feel like Nets trolls coming from me if somebody finds this tweet. Because it was a bit of a reach, and I felt a little trollish, and that's not what I was going for, so I deleted it. But I wanted to make a clearer point on here. And the tweet basically was that if you need Kevin Durant to drop 50 to beat the Pistons, and you need him to drop a 30-point triple-double in overtime to beat the Raptors in December, then I'm personally worried about this Nets team when it comes to a deep playoff run in May and June. And this is why. Kevin Durant is Kevin Durant. He's going to, I don't think his level of play is going to drop at all. However, asterisk, I think you run the risk if he's putting in all this energy now and all this extremely like GOAT level play. I want to make this clear because I don't want us to come across as KD hate. He's literally putting GOAT level play on the court right now. But if he has to play at this level in December, personally, I'm a little worried about him being gassed come May, come June, come April when the playoffs happen. Because we saw the reports that there's renewed optimism that Kyrie Irving could be coming back. But I don't think that renewed optimism is because Kyrie said he's going to get a shot. I think it's more so that the Nets, even as an organization, are realizing they need some more offense on this team. They need Kyrie Irving back. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. If they have Kyrie Irving back, the Nets are that super team that we were all scared of when we heard they were all signing there, at this point, 2 summers ago. And I think the Nets organization, in the beginning of the season, were like, no, if Kyrie, you can't play, you either all in or all out, which I was 100% behind and 100% understood and still believe that's the best option. Just go get your vaccine, Kyrie Irving. But now I think the Nets organization realized they're missing his offense, especially with James Harden and this slump still. If you ask me, he's still in a slump. I know he's looking a little bit better, but he's still in a slump. His good games are against bad teams. fight me on it. They realize they need some help. And so there's talks that maybe they'll let Kyrie rejoin the team and only play away games. I really think that would hurt their continuity in the long run, especially if Kyrie decides to still not get a vaccine. So what does that look like in a playoff series? It's still a lot that they got to talk about. But the fact that there's renewed hope there speaks, it's interesting for the Nets. So that's my apprehension about the Nets. I've been talking about it a lot on TikTok, and I've been making a lot of comments about it and stuff. So I just wanted to clear the air. I don't think the Nets are a bad team. I think if any team that has Kevin Durant on it are title contenders. You could put Kevin Durant on, who's the worst team in the league right now? What is it? It's not the Spurs. Who is the worst team in the league? NBA standings. I don't even know the worst team in the league right now off the top of my head. You can put them on the Pistons. You can put them on the Pistons or the Pelicans, the two worst teams in either conference, and they're title contenders with Kevin Durant. Like, that's legit how great Kevin Durant is. But let's get back to this athletic survey. Nice person. Hello, what's up? How you doing? So yeah, we got Kevin Durant, the best player in the NBA according to the old heads. I was actually surprised to see LeBron James here, like this high. Like, I thought we would at least see Giannis at number 2 and then LeBron. But I get it. LeBron is still LeBron. He's one of the GOATs, arguably the best player of all time. And I can't be too mad at that list. I would have wished I would have seen some more love for Steph, but it's old heads, and I'm not surprised. And you'll see why in a second, because they actually talk about the three-point shot in this survey. Number 2, which current player would you want taking a shot with the game on the line? Once again, Kevin Durant at 48%. Overwhelming percentage. Kevin Durant is clutch. And that's mainly because I think when thinking about a stat like this, who do you want to take the shot with the game on the line? I think a lot of people thought about this is we inbounding the ball, putting the ball in your hand, clearing out, you go get your own bucket. And I think Kevin Durant can do that a little better than Steph can. Not saying Steph can't, but I think for Steph, it would probably be more so off a pick or more so off really Draymond's holding the ball, like maybe like the high post, and he's running off a lot of screens, and then he gets open for a 3, as opposed to Kevin Durant, because he's literally a 7-foot demon. You can just give him the ball, and he can dribble it up and make something happen. There can only be one GOAT. I mean, Jason, I kind of agree. If you're insinuating if you're wondering who my GOAT is Michael Jordan. Look, you just said it yourself in the comment, MJ. If you're wondering who my GOAT is, it's Michael Jordan. However, I do acknowledge the greatness of other players like LeBron James, Kevin Durant. I appreciate the greatness that is in its time. And if other NBA fans tell me that LeBron James is their GOAT or even Kobe Bryant is their GOAT, I don't really go crazy and go into a wild argument about that and try to tell them that they're wrong, because there are legitimate arguments for those other players being the GOAT. So I'm not mad at it. My personal GOAT is MJ. See, look, my boy Mario, he's saying Kobe. So, like, I don't really have no arguments against any of these guys. Now, if you was like, I don't know, Tyrese Halliburton is your GOAT. Like, if you said some random name and was talking some that's the GOAT, then I'd be like, all right, we're not really having a basketball conversation. You trying to troll. But if you saying somebody legit that's in a GOAT conversation, I'm not really going to argue with you on that one. Personally, I'd love to hear your opinion, but I'm not going to try to argue you down. There's a difference. Number 3, 5 years from now, which current NBA player will be the league's best player? See, this one I thought was actually pretty interesting. It seemed a little more even. The fact that Giannis is still here makes your name is Hawks Hoops. Are you a Hawks fan? Blueberry, no, I'm not a Hawks fan at all. And I'm actually, Hawk is what my boys call me. Like, people call me Hawk. Hawk is basically my name. But it wasn't until after I made this channel, I made my TikTok, and I started to get some traction, and the thought never really crossed my mind that people would ask me if I'm a Hawks fan until people started asking me if I'm a Hawks fan. So I've actually answered that question a lot over the last 2 weeks. So no, I'm not a Hawks fan. My name's just Hawk. So Giannis being one of the best players 5 years from now makes a lot of sense to me personally. I want to say he's 27. Yeah, he's only 27 years old, so 5 years from now, he'll be 32. Kevin Durant, I want to say he's like 31, 32, and he's considered the best player in the league right now. LeBron is 36 and can by some be considered the best player in the league. So Giannis being 32 and being the best player in the league prediction makes perfect sense to me. Luka is probably the person I'm most excited to see how his career goes. because I feel like Luka gets a lot of love, and I feel like I'm slowly turning into a Luka hater, and I don't want to be a Luka hater. I just feel like currently he gets more love than he's warranted, if that makes sense. Like I see the potential in this game. I see the playmaking, the scoring, the shooting, the ridiculous clutch gene that pops up sometimes in the playoffs, and he gets crazy moments shooting fall away game winners over Paul George and Kawhi Leonard in the playoffs. Like I get the I guess we'll say blueprint or the building block that is Luka Doncic, but I'm very curious to see his career. Anthony Edwards should be on this list. LaMelo could be too. I want to say, yeah, LaMelo is on this list, Rio. I mean, he's very, very low on the list, but LaMelo is on this list. We got Giannis, don't know, Luka, KD, Zion, Ja, Jason Tatum, Devin Booker, LaMelo, Cade Cunningham getting some love. My boy Dami Olobo Ogidon saying Ben Simmons, best player in the league in 5 years. So, one, he knows I'm a Sixers fan. So I can't tell if and he tells me to save this comment. I can't tell if he's trolling me or he's being serious. I don't know if I even want to say this. So the Sixers fan enemy wants to say there is a legitimate case that Ben Simmons could be one of the best players in the league in 5 years. If Ben Simmons goes to a team that more so fits his play style, he has the spacing, and he decides to be actually aggressive and drive to the paint and not be weird. We've seen glimpses where, I mean, he dropped 40 on Rudy Gobert. I feel like that's his claim to fame on basically all layups, because we know Ben Simmons is only going to the paint. So he has the potential to be one of the best players in the league. I mean, he's been all defensive team. Did he say has been made an all NBA team? I can't remember if he made an all NBA team off the top of my head, but I know he's made an all defensive team. So, I mean, there's potential there for him, but we're not really entertaining that. LaMelo Ball, it's too early in his career for me. Very similar to Luka. That's why I'm struggling when people have these conversations about Luka Doncic. I mean, I see the potential there. Same with LaMelo. I see the potential there, but it's still just so early in his career that I'm like, I don't know for real. Next question is, which current player do you enjoy watching the most? 32% is Steph Curry. This is why this was so interesting to me when Steph Curry didn't get a higher percentage when asked in the first question, who's the best player in the league? Because everyone clearly enjoys watching him the most because he's playing basketball. Somebody said, what? Hell no. I guess that was about my Ben Simmons comments. Like I said, I admittedly said I'm a Ben Simmons fan. I'm a Sixers fan. I think he has potential. You take my Ben Simmons comments with a grain of salt. I'm trying to be transparent here with you. Which current player enjoy watching the most? Like I said, so Steph Curry is on this list as 32%, the highest player on this list, which is crazy when you think. So everyone enjoys watching him, but no one thinks he's the best player in the league. It doesn't necessarily add up to me. I thought he would have been higher on the best player in the league category. Kyrie getting some love here, even though he hasn't been playing. Jokic getting some love here. Russ, I'm loving the fact that I'm seeing Russ here, because although Russ can make some bonehead plays and some really be frustrating sometimes, I do love watching him play. He's one of my favorite players in the league. And Kawhi getting a shout out here as well, although he hasn't played this season. Which current NBA player would you have liked most to play for? See, look, I told you I'm a Sixers fan. Shout out to the Sixers Cup. You can't even see that. That still has your little Okafor on it and Dario Saric. So we got Greg Popovich, Steve Kerr, Doc Rivers, Monty Williams. Shout out to Monty Williams, Eric Spoelstra, Steve Nash. I'm actually very surprised he's on this list. Personally, I don't think Steve Nash is a great coach. At least so far, he hasn't really proved to me that he's a great coach. I mean, who am I that you got to prove yourself that you're a great coach to me? But I'm not really seeing, at least especially as an offensive coach, like a lot of the Nets offense is staying around and watching James Harden and Kevin Durant, which I understand. If you have James Harden and Kevin Durant on your team, you're going to give them the ball. But also, I feel like you can implement some more player movement in that team. I said something very similar about the Lakers recently. There's just not player movement going on there. Mike D'Antoni, I'm shooting everything. Facts. That is true. If Mike D'Antoni in the 7 seconds or less offense, if I'm an old head, I would love to play for Mike D'Antoni, especially if he's an old head who could shoot a little bit. Eric Spoelstra solo is a little surprising, especially because I think he's one of the best minds in NBA. Like for real. Like he's one of the best minds in the NBA. He's had a Heat team, especially if you think about like, what was this, probably like 2 years ago? when the year before they even had Jimmy Butler, where it was like not a ragtag team, but like a team that didn't really have a clear superstar. It was kind of just a collective of good players, and they were still competitive and still winning games. And you can see it was because of his coaching. Bosher's a really, really good coach. Shout out to Monty Williams. I'm a fan of his as well. Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers gets a lot of gas. That 08 Celtics run goated Doc Rivers in the minds of a lot of people. And if you ask me, he's really not that great of a coach. He's blown a lot of 3-1 leads. He's blown the most 3-1 leads of any coach all time in history. Why would anyone want to play for Steve Nash? Make it make sense. Exactly. But yeah, Doc Rivers is highly overrated in my opinion. Like I said, that 08 Celtics run goated him in a lot of people's eyes, and he's not as good as I think a lot of people. He's not as good as people give him credit, in my opinion. All right, which team will win this series? The 2020-21 NBA champions, the Bucks, or the 86-87 Lakers? This is how I know. These was old heads asked this question, because I'm gonna tell you right now, the 86-87 Lakers off the top of my head, I know that's Magic and Kareem and them. But if you'd asked me to list their full roster, I couldn't tell you. So we're gonna move on. This is the question I was really interested about. Is the prevalence of the three-point shot a positive or negative for the current quality of play? And I was surprised at how split the GOAT took them down. The Celtics should have won more. The GOAT took them down. I'm actually really surprised how split these former NBA players who participated in this survey are on this. It's basically almost looks like a 50-50 split between it being a positive and negative if you combine big positive and big negative. And I think a lot of old head players, and this is kind of what indicated to me there's some old heads, because old head guards, you talk to players like Steve Nash, you talk to players even like Kyle Korver, and they'll say, I wish I played in this era because I would torch. Steve Nash would go crazy. Steve Nash would have been up there with the Reggie Millers and the Ray Allens in the terms of three-pointers made if he played in today's era. Or he played at least in an era where he was encouraged to shoot the three ball more. And the fact that it's just slightly negative, I was actually talking to one of my boys today about this, because this post was in the group chat before it came to you guys, obviously. So we were talking about the three-point shot and its impact, especially on young players in today's game. He has a young nephew that's starting to play in AAU and really get into the AAU circuit and starting playing high school basketball. And he said that he's been to a couple of his games, been to a couple of his practices, tryouts, and you literally just see kids stopping at three-point line on fast break and chucking up threes, and they're not making them. And then me and actually my boy Olaba that's in the chat right now were saying that I don't think it's necessarily the fault of the NBA or the fault of Steph Curry, I'll say, for changing the game so much. I think it's more so the fault of coaching, bad training, even parents not necessarily teaching their kids how to play the game of basketball, in a sense that, because if you are a good shooter, even at, middle school, high school age, we've seen clips of good shooters. Like, we can pull up House of Highlights, and I'm sure they got some highlights of some high schooler knocking down threes at a crazy clip, even on fast breaks. And in that case, if you are that type of player, if you're that type of shooter, then it makes perfect sense to shoot it through on a fast break. Threes are more than twos. But you got a lot of players and a lot of kids who aren't like that. And people can say it's ruining the game, because even in the NBA, you'll have instances where a player who's not that good of a three-point shooter might be stopping and pulling up on a fast break instead of, doing the 3-on-2 or 2-on-1, going to the rim, going for the lane. And I think that comes down to coaching. If you're going to be a coach at the NBA level, at college level, AAU level, whatever, at every level, if you're going to be a coach that's going to let your players make dumb decisions and not, I don't want to say discipline them, but I mean, there's consequences to your actions, especially in the game of basketball when you play for a coach. If you're not going to have consequences for bad decision making from your players, and that's on you as a coach, and that's on you as an organization. But I wouldn't blame the three-point shot for players making bad decisions. Steve Nash would be a very efficient Trae Young. That's facts. He'd be an extremely efficient Trae Young with a better playmaker as well. Is the quality of play in the NBA today better or worse than it was during your career? A bit worse, a bit better. This one actually looks like it leaned towards more so a bit worse, which once I'm not really surprised. There's a bunch of old heads. What rule changes would you like to see? One, I'm not gonna go through all of these, but one thing I thought was interesting: call travel, palming, calling more carries. I think that'd be hard for refs to do. There are times when I think players do get away with carries, but I think when they're playing at that speed that they're playing, you just can't call carries in the league. Bring back hand checking. I don't think that's ever going to happen. Add a 4-point shot. I don't think that's ever going to happen. Eliminate the Euro step. This sounds like a hater. The traveling step back. The gather step. I feel like we're at the point in the NBA where people know what that is. Extend the restricted area. Interesting. Eliminate or rein in the 3-point shot. Once again, like I said, it was some old heads in this. I just thought it was interesting. I wanted to break it down, talk about it for a little bit. Next on the docket. So this is what the bulk of what today's video was supposed to be about. Apparently how long we've been live so far? We're 35 minutes in and I ain't even really got to what I wanted to talk about all the way. So thank y'all so much for rocking with me so far. Trade season is underway. It's official today that now 86% of the league's players are available to be traded. Before today, it was only like 62, 61%, something like that. So with all these players available to be traded, I wanted to talk about some potential trades that I've seen online. I'm not necessarily the guy who's going to go in and plug in into the trade finder, into the trade machine and make sure trades are going to work money-wise. I have conversations about if it makes sense, like player for player and stuff like that. But money-wise, I'm not that guy. If you want that guy, there's plenty of other content creators who go way more in-depth than that. I just don't have the time to be doing that. I ain't going to hold you. But that being said, Bleacher Report put together 2 interesting articles that I want to talk about, talking about some potential trades and just kind of seeing what's out there and seeing what teams are looking for based on current rumors and some thoughts from some of their writers. So the first one we got here is Cam Reddish to the Mavericks. What the hope would be here is that the Mavericks desperately, and I mean desperately, need 3-point shooting. And the hope would be to be able to add Cam Reddish to that team would get them some 3-point shooting and some defense. The Mavericks are really struggling right now. A lot of their offense is literally Luka, dribble, and try to kick it out to a shooter, but their shooters aren't hitting shots. So hopefully Cam Reddish would be the solution for that. That would look like Josh Green and a lighting protected pick for Cam Reddish. If I'm the Hawks, I have no issue really making this deal, mainly because they have a lot of wings. Cam Reddish hasn't really been playing that great for them, in my opinion. And you get a free pick out of it. So I would do it if I'm the Hawks. I don't think it would make that big of an impact on the Mavericks if you're being real, but they got to try something. This player in general. So this trade is the Utah Jazz getting Jeremy Grant. And to be more specific, it's Bojan Bogdanovic, top 5 protected pick in the 2026 and 2022 second round pick. Now, does Jeremy Grant go to the Utah Jazz? I'm not 100% sure, but I guarantee you Jeremy Grant's probably going somewhere. Jeremy Grant is probably the most sought after player via trade in the league this year. He's a guy who could play amazing defense. He can shoot the ball a little bit. He can finish. He's like the prototypical 3-level lengthy wing that a lot of teams could benefit from having, especially the Utah Jazz. The Utah Jazz's biggest issue when it comes to what people say is, what people interpret as Utah choking in the playoffs and underperforming in the playoffs is really Utah being out-coached and coaches going small and pulling Rudy out the paint. And Utah's defensive scheme has always been in the regular season to funnel players into Rudy Gobert, and he defends the rim well. But when he's out guarding a stretch 5, there's nobody to defend the rim, and that's why they underperform in the playoffs. However, I'm not saying Jeremy Grant would solve all their problems, but he would instantly become their best on-ball defender. People have been telling me, yes, they have Mike Conley, but Mike Conley is getting a little older. He's definitely not the Mike Conley he was when he played for the Grizzlies. He's not that grit and grind Mike Conley anymore. He's still a good defender, don't get me wrong. He's serviceable, but he's not one of the best on-the-ball defenders in the league anymore, in my opinion. Jeremy Grant, on the other hand, would be a really good point of attack defender who can guard the best player on the other team, guard primary ball handlers. I would love to see this for the Utah Jazz, but Jeremy Grant can be a big impact on a lot of different teams. Next, they want The Knicks address starting lineup issues, and involves Miles Turner going to the New York Knicks for Nerlens Noel, Obi Toppin, protected 2022 first round pick from Charlotte, top 10 protected 2023 first round, and a 2022 second round pick for Miles Turner. Now, on paper, this really depends on how much the Pacers really want to embrace the idea of a rebuild. If the Pacers rebuild wants to be like a quick rebuild that we also get serviceable players who can kind of sort of play right away, and we just go in a almost instant different direction, I don't think they make this trade for the New York Knicks. Now, Miles Turner, after I probably say Jeremy Grant, is probably the second, him and Sabonis, and I think there's a Sabonis trade in here we'll get to next, are also highly, highly sought after players. Miles Turner is, in theory, someone who should be a stretch five. When you really look at his numbers, he's not as good as a shooter as a lot of people say he is. But in theory, he should be a stretch five. He's at least an elite rim protector who can finish well around the rim. I always thought Miles Turner, I'll be honest, about 2, maybe 3 years ago, I thought Miles Turner was going to actually take a big leap, turn into a really good three-point shooter. I thought he was going to develop a better offensive post game. Doesn't seem to be really happening for him. That's okay. But he could be a nice starting big man on a really good contending team. Like if any contending team added him, or even a playoff team added him to the starting lineup, that can move them up into actual title contention. And yes, need him in Minnesota. So KO YouTube said needed in Minnesota. I don't know if that's Miles Turner you're talking about, you need in Minnesota, or you're talking about Jeremy Grant. I'm a hope you were talking about Jeremy Grant, because I feel like that makes way more sense than Miles, considering you guys got Cat. Unless you want to put Miles at the power forward spot, which to me personally doesn't make sense. Next on this list, it'd be Warriors picking up Domantas Sabonis for James Wiseman, Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, top 5 protected in 2026 for Domantas Sabonis. This pick I actually thought was really, really interesting. Sabonis is a player who can play. I feel like you can almost plug him in almost any system. Like, let me rephrase. You can't plug him in any system. He's not that great of a defender. But offensively, he's an all-star caliber player. He's a very, very versatile big, power forward, could run a small ball center, but if you run him at small ball center, he's going to be abysmal defensively. But yes, I was just about to say, he'd be like adding David Lee to this team again. But I think David Lee played a little bit better defense. He just had a grittiness to him. Domantas Sabonis on this team would be cheese. I think he'd be like a better version of what Bjelica already does for this team. You got Bjelica coming off the bench. He can shoot a little bit. He can put the ball on the floor a little bit, make a couple plays. Sabonis would be that, but at all-star level. And I would think could make the board. It would make the Warriors very, very strong favorites. Because to be honest with you, giving up James Wiseman, Kuminga, and Moses Moody, that ain't really giving up much if you're getting back somebody like Sabonis. And finally, the one on this list, Ben Simmons saga ends in Portland. Now, this trade is Ben Simmons for CJ McCollum, Nazir Little, 2023 first-round pick swap, and a 2024 first-round pick. Oh, I'm sorry, and a 2025 first-round pick swap for Ben Simmons. Now, at first, a lot of people might be saying that. Initially, I said this myself. I thought this was a good trade. Then CJ goes down with the collapsed lung, but then there are reports that he is looking promising. I was doing some reading that there's been 2-3 other collapsed lungs in NBA history, especially like the last 5 to 10 years. And all those players have come back fine. It's a very it sounds really scary when you say collapsed lung. And it is actually really scary. But CJ said himself, he's working out slowly. He's doing some light, moderate stuff. And in theory, he should make a full recovery. Now, we still don't know what the necessarily the timeline is on that. But I'll say this. If CJ is healthy, and if I'm the Sixers, I would do this trade. I like Nazir Little. I really like CJ McCollum. You're getting a lot of picks, pick swaps, and a pick. Ben Simmons, I think, would look good in Portland playing along Dame, because now he would just have more of an open floor. Yes, they would still have Jusuf Nurkic, but Nurkic is not Joel Embiid. Nurkic can basically get out the way of Ben Simmons so he can play more in the paint, and it's not going to hurt that team so much as in Nurkic isn't the focal point of their offense like Joel Embiid's the focal point of the Sixers offense. And Ben Simmons would bring a lot of needed defense for this bottom of the barrel defensive team that plays in Portland. I just want to see Ben Simmons play from Blueberry. Yeah. I mean, I told y'all earlier, I'm a fan of Ben's. I take a lot of flack for being a fan of Ben's. He's a very frustrating player. Some days I'm a fan of him. Some days I want to, I don't know, burn his jersey, even though I don't have jerseys, and I think it's dumb to burn jerseys. But that he's an up and down type player. But I would love to see him back on the court, and I think Portland's a good fit for him. The other, let me pull this up again. And then I just want to go really quickly, not take as much time, just to go over some other players that are potentially available. Some of them we've already talked about. But these are some rumors that have been going around in the league recently. Once again, shout out to Bleacher Report. We already talked about Jeremy Grant. He's one of the players that's listed here that could potentially be moved, that are at least looking to move, that they're looking to move off of. Portland Trailblazers are interested in moving Nurkic and Covington. But Larry Nance Jr. seems to be a rival, the target rival. Yeah, they want to keep Larry Nance, but they're trying to move off of Covington and Nurkic. I think they can get some decent return for those two players. I'm actually surprised they're trying to get rid of Covington. Covington has but I'm not at the same time. Covington has the reputation of being a good defender, especially from his Sixers days and his days in, who did he play with for after Sixers? I want to say Minnesota, but I could be wrong. But I want to say Minnesota. But as of lately, he hasn't been a defender that historically he's been known to be. We've already talked about Cam Reddish being moved off from the Hawks, and like I said, it's because basically they have a lot of wings. They have enough wings. They just have enough wings that they can try to move off of Cam Reddish. Utah Jazz interested in the defensive-minded wing. Jeremy Grant sliding in there. Knicks interested in trading the first round, trading 2018. Oh, trading Kevin Knox. I don't know how much you're getting for Kevin Knox. I don't even know why this is here. Jalen Smith, Denver Nuggets upgrades. This is a team I would love to see Jeremy Grant on, the Denver Nuggets, especially considering all the injuries they have. I don't think they have anything really to trade for a player of Jeremy Grant's caliber, especially with the injuries that they have. But I would love to see Jeremy Grant on this team. I think it would make them a lot better and help move them up in the standings, potentially get Jokic in actual MVP consideration. We'll talk about that in a second. Houston Rockets are interested in making a lot of moves. DJ Augustin, Daniel House, Daniel Theis, and Eric Gordon are viewed as the league's viable trade candidates. These are they're all players who would like benefit a team, especially a contending team. But them being older, I mean, it's not like you're expecting them to really come and change a whole lot. It's just if you're looking for some plug and play guys who you just need some valuable minutes. You need somebody who's gonna give you 10 valuable minutes. Hit up the Rockets, you can get some players. We're not even gonna talk about the Pelicans because they got a lot going on. It's a lot going on with the Pelicans. I'm going to skip over. There was a story talking about Rick Carlisle. I'm going to skip over that. Long story short, too long didn't read. Luka Doncic and Rick Carlisle really didn't get along. And it wasn't so much that Luka and Rick didn't necessarily get along directly initially. Luka didn't like the way Rick talked about players like Dennis Smith Jr., who Luka had got along with a lot in his rookie season. And then Luka just didn't really believe in Rick Carlisle's schemes. They argued a lot on the sidelines. It was just really, really ugly. And I thought it was a really interesting read. I might pin it in the, here, look. If somebody want to be a basketball nerd like me, look, I'm going to pin it in the comments. Not pin it, but I'm going to leave it in the comments. It's a longer article from, I don't remember who wrote this. Who wrote the article? It's a longer ESPN article. It's probably about a 5-10 minute read. But it was an interesting read. And it really just goes to show that you can have really good players. You can have a good offense, but it's a lot that goes into winning basketball. And it's more than just X's and O's. It's real people on the court. It's real people playing. It's real people coaching. And personalities get involved, and that can turn into not playing as well as you could, or not living up to your team's potential simply because of personality differences. And it just goes to show to not to really take teams that are really playing really well for granted. because not everybody gets along with everybody. Even in your job right now, you probably don't love everybody. And you got to think at the end of the day, I mean, yeah, they play basketball. They're playing a game. They're playing a sport that we all love and getting paid millions. But it'll still work. And you don't get along with everybody you work with. I want to take a look at this, right? I want to talk about this. I want to take a look at this. I keep hearing Steph, KD, Giannis. Mind you, this is from NBA memes. It's a meme account I follow. However, the stats they mention in this tweet are real stats. I just want to put that out there. These stats are legit stats. Oh, my browser might be preventing calls to regular. Were these calls in today? Huh. If you called into the show and I didn't answer, I'm just going to say right now, I apologize. I'm looking over at my Google Voice, and I got 2 missed calls. One that happened at 8:15 and one happened at 8:16, top of the show. So whoever you were that called, I appreciate you for calling in. But for some reason, it didn't ring on my end. So if you do call back in, I'll try to be more aware of that and try to answer the phone. That is very weird. I don't know why they didn't answer. But it says, I keep hearing Steph, KD, and Giannis for MVP. Nikola Jokic is averaging nearly 27, 14, 7, shooting 58% from the field with the highest PER in NBA history. That still stands, by the way. How is he not an MVP candidate? To add some extra stats, he's also Jokic is also leading in box score plus minus, and by a long shot. And so if you haven't been watching Nuggets games, they're tough to watch. I'm not gonna hold you. Outside of Jokic, Nuggets games have been a little tough to watch, and that's not their fault. It's injuries. Jamal Murray's out. There's not really a clear timeline on his return. I don't think he's returning this season. He could return this season, but I don't think he would, at least yet. MPJ is out indefinitely due to his back issues. We knew when he was drafted that he had potential back issues. And I think Jokic should be in MVP conversations. However, the Nuggets are 8th in the West, sitting at 14 and 13. And unless they win more games, he's not going to get MVP conversations. But he rightfully deserves it. He's putting up absolutely historic numbers. And I just wanted to give him some shot. I just wanted to give him some love because he's not going to get MVP. He'll probably be All NBA first team. The second team at the lowest, but he should be All NBA first team. This is coming from a Joel Embiid fan. And if you ask me, he's one of the best players in basketball right now. But he's not getting the love he deserves. Every game that the Nuggets win is because of Nikola Jokic. And it just sucks that this team's really struggling with some injuries right now, and he's not going to get the love he deserves. We already talked about CJ McCollum injury update, and so yeah, overall, that's pretty much everything I want to talk about. We're at the 52-minute mark on the show. This has got to be probably the longest show in history of my show so far. So I thank you all for rocking with me. If you're new and pulled up, I appreciate you. If you're a returner, I appreciate you a little bit more because you pulled up another time. We're gonna be out of here. This is pretty much everything I had. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far and you haven't left a like on the video, I don't know what you're doing. You was clearly rocking with the boy if you made it this far, so leave a like. I appreciate you. If you made it this far and somehow you're not subscribed to the channel, I don't know what you're doing. But I'd appreciate the subscribe. I'd appreciate a like. It helps more people find the channel, helps the growth, and it helps us have more conversation. It helps us have a bigger conversation about basketball with more people. And I'll see you guys next week. Thanks so much for watching. I'm out. Peace.